Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry to start again after this delicious lunch, but it's my turn. Sorry. Okay, thanks a lot for this kind of invitation. I will talk about the olive oil and the heritage of the Italian Mediterranean diet. I call the imperative to innovate. So I will try to translate this into some slides. Before starting, I would like to say that I have some conflict of interest in this issue because I was born in a Mediterranean country. I live in a Mediterranean country. I suppose to eating Mediterranean diet, and I've carried studies on Mediterranean diet. So I have a strong personal, not commercial conflict of interest. I have a strong personal conflict of interest because 5 years ago I was here at the previous edition of this conference with my beloved friend Paolo, which is not here. But I want to show this slide because the name of the conference, we entitled that conference Food Values because we thought that food values is something we need to keep in mind. I'm going to show you later. Because we are facing with a contraposition. We know that Mediterranean diet is good. We all know that Mediterranean is good. This is one of our results of an umbrella review showing that Mediterranean diet is beneficial for many different relevant health outcomes. And we know that this results of our intervention study that Mediterranean diet is as beneficial as low-calorie vegetarian dietary profile, and probably better than a vegetarian profile, because if you look at the inflammatory profile, the orange bars means the reduction of pro-inflammatory cytokines were more prevalent in Mediterranean diets than vegetarian diets, probably related to vitamin B12 reduction we showed in vegetarians. And if you look at the gut microbiota results we observed in this kind of patients, I keep in mind, I remind you that were Mediterranean people that just turned their eating habits into vegetarian diet. We showed a reduction, an amelioration of different species of gut microbiota, especially in Mediterranean profile and not in vegetarian profile. On the other hand, however, we know this is our results of a small cohort of students attending secondary schools, showing that secondary school students do not follow Mediterranean diet in Italy. Because if you look at the gray bars, the gray bars means that the person who do not follow Mediterranean diet, especially for some food categories, and I'm going to show you this one, which is quite impressive for olive oil. You need to imagine that in Liguria, which is a typical Mediterranean country, more than 50% of the students do not consume regularly olive oil. So this is the situation of today in Italy, and not in other country. And we know also this because we have an increase of consumption of ultra processed foods also in Italy, and we know right well that ultra processed foods is related with a reduction of adherence to Mediterranean diet. This is one of our course, very small but quite impressive. So we are facing a contraposition because we know something very good, but we are doing the extreme, the opposite. And so there is what I call the nutrition confusion. So where I'm a doctor, so I always treat patients and try to treat patients with food and with drugs, but patients who know what they have to eat, but do not eat what they know. And so we have a lot of guidelines, indication, recommendation, but the person and the countries do not follow this recommendation, because if you look at the percentage of regions not meeting dietary recommendation now and in the future is more than half of the regions all over the world, and they know do not consume a higher amount of meat or sugar or energy intake, but they do. And the only consumption they reach as an optimal amount, the global burden of disease in 2017 is what do not consume. So we don't follow the recommendation for fruits, for vegetables, for legumes, but just for red meat, for processed meat, especially for sugar sweetened beverages and so on. So we know what to do, but we are not following the right indications. So in my opinion, this is time for change. We need to change something. We need to change our idea, our state of mind, because it's something we need to innovate something. And in our example here in Italy, the innovate, it means something that needs to keep in mind in our opinion. We need to change our way of thinking about diet. Diet is a lifestyle. It means something which is good, positive, and not as a restriction. If you remember, if you keep in mind that the most important diet which are now present in the literature, but not just in the scientific, but also in the commercial literature, are all restrictive diets, something that's been taken off. So carbohydrates or sugar or gluten or meat and so on. While diet is lifestyle, for us it's a pleasure. The pleasure means a positive effect. This is a way of thinking we need to change. The other thing is that's why with Paolo we thought about the name, the food values. We need to put food as a first priority. Of course, not as first. First is health, the second is peace, but then there is a food. The food values. We need to educate person to innovate the food values, the values of food from the farm to fork, from the farm to the person who consumes it. And this is what I'm going to show you the example we have done in the last 15 years. Because here in Italy, in Greece, in the Mediterranean country, we don't have to innovate anything. We need just to learn from the past. My grandfather knew everything I'm going to show you now. So I'm not telling anything new. I'm just reporting and restoring our tradition. And our tradition means also that something has happened in the last 20 years. The example of wheat. For us, wheat is everything. For Italian cuisine and Italian tradition, wheat is everything. Bread, pasta, focaccia, everything. If you look at what happened in the wheat in the last 20 years, there was an incredible, 60 years, there was a renovation in terms of not beneficial effect, because the modern varieties of wheat are completely different from the old variety of wheat in terms of nutritional composition, more protein, less mineral, less nutrients, less phytochemicals, and a higher amount of the W. W is the index of the strength of flour. So it means that we are consuming now modern variety that usually in the past they used to do a panettone. So it means something which was very strong, and we are consuming a bread every day for about 200 grams per day in Italy. So if something has changed, we look at the different bread. Where my grandfather used to consume a bread very, very small as high. Now the consumer want the bread very high. So it means that you need to use another leavening method. You have to use wheat and flour very strong. So it's something that we lose something. And we lose something because if you look at the phytochemical profile, the Ver circle means the old variety. Look at how the old variety just goes in the opposite direction of the modern variety. So there is something which is completely different, not only for phytochemical and nutraceutical value, but also for health effects. We have done something like 10 studies on healthy people and patients with cardiovascular disease, with inflammatory bowel disease, with diabetes, with every kind of disease. And the results were all the same, small, but slight in a typical pharmaceutical model of the study design, small but significant reduction of total cholesterol and increase of minerals, of vitamins, but more importantly, a reduction of inflammatory profile. So consuming the same amount of bread, but done with other variety of grains which were present in our territory, land, in all our history, so nothing reconstituted. And this is the severity of bloating. Look at the person who were consuming with irritable bowel syndrome. After 1 week, they had a beneficial effect just consuming the bread with ancient variety grain. And look at just the very recent results on modulation of gut microbiota in patients with fibromyalgia, which is a disease that hasn't got any therapy at the moment. We noticed a slide by positive correlation with an amelioration of gut microbiota consuming the bread coming from bread and other grain products coming from these varieties. Why? I don't know why. Probably there are some hypothetical mechanisms, but I don't care about the mechanism. I care about the patients. Patients stay well, stay better if they consume this grain. So probably there is something. There is the amylose, the MUFA, there is minerals. I don't know. This we need to study on that. But we started to do this clinical studies because patients came to us and said, I tried to consume that kind of grain, and I said, well, and I said better. Okay, let's do that. Because if it's impossible that person just came crazy all at the moment, and we in Italy, we are facing with this problem about 20 years. So the one thing, we say that Mediterranean diet is not our past, our tradition. Look at what was reconstituted from a Pompeian history. This was from the exhibition The Last Supper in Pompeii in London 2019. Look how the Pompeian people used to consume their meal. Fruits and nuts, fish, pomegranate, focaccia, honey, cheese, and bread. So wheat was present. Also, there was no red wine, but there was also red wine, fruits, nuts, and cheese. And look at on the right, the first bottle of olive oil discovered in Pompeii, and it was analyzed. It was real olive oil. So we are not innovating anything. We are just reconstituted the tradition. So with this, I finish, but I want to dedicate to Paolo because in this place, in this table, we wanted to bring, and we brought the bread made with ancient grains, with olive oil, because our history is bread with olive oil. Probably one of the beneficial effects is the interaction between the phytochemical profiles of that bread and the olive oil, not just olive oil, and nor just bread. And Paolo used to say, we need to find a way to let children consume that things as a snack. And he said, we need to work in a way to find something that is not, that you can get dirty of that, because the bread just, the olive oil just goes through the bed. If we find that solution, we'll find a way to educate younger generation to consume what we used to consume, because my grandfather used to give me the snack as a bread and the olive oil. Thank you very much.